Good afternoon, YouTube. Welcome back to Phatkat Collections. Got another Aiyima product, and this is their Aima T1 Pro preamp. So very cool. So if you're not familiar with Aiyima, I've been reviewing their products now for several months. Love this brand. I love that we have products like this that allow you to add audio in your home, business, apartment, wherever you live, on a very small footprint, right? These amps are awesome. And now, keep in mind, this is not an amp. Their amps are awesome. This is a preamp, so you still need to get their amplifier. There's several options you can get. If this is not something that you want to buy because it doesn't have an amplifier, just kind of weigh the pros and cons of going with a separate amplifier as opposed to one of their all-in units. They got plenty of different options for you. So now I already have something similar to this. It's a different model number, and this is their new redesign. And so what they've done here is they've added on this the ability to have a 12-volt trigger and turn on another one of their amplifiers. I think it's a great addition. The only downside is that it doesn't work with some of the amplifiers you might already own. So just kind of keep that in mind. So if you are adding this, let's say you already have one of their, for instance, A07 Max amplifiers, the ones that I have, I was hoping that this was going to be able to trigger those amps. It does not. So you have to buy specifically an amplifier through Aiyima that has that 3.5mm 12-volt trigger. And the nice thing about that, and the reason that's nice is because, and let me just kind of paint the picture for you, my other model that I have on this, of course, doesn't have the 12-volt trigger, and it's the A07 Max amps. I have two of those amps, each in mono, one per speaker, for a couple of nice Sern Vega towers I picked up. Sounds incredible, super loud. You really don't need any more for standard 2-channel audio, right? But one thing that's kind of annoying is that each of those amplifiers have a volume knob with a built-in power button, right? Or power trigger. So when you turn it all the way from left to right to adjust the volume up or down, but also when you first turn it, it clicks on. The downside to that is you pretty much have to set your volume for each speaker every time you turn it on. Now I just go max on the whole thing and then use the volume on this. Not a big deal, but it would be really nice to be able to have one volume button or one switch like this one has, just a toggle switch. You go from Bluetooth to RCA or off. It'd be nice to be able to turn this on and then have this trigger the other amps to come on and have one volume, set the volume once and forget it, set it and forget it, and then just use the volume to attenuate the sound and then turn it on or off. Some folks might just want to have this volume set at a certain spot, be able to turn it on or off and have it always be playing at the same volume. So I like the fact they integrate that. One thing that I hope that they would do, and it probably would involve, I don't know, maybe they can come out with something like this because a lot of folks already have their products. And so what I think they should come out with is a sort of like something maybe comparable in size, and I don't know if you could do that. It might have to be a little bit larger, but make kind of the smallest form factor you could make that would actually have multiple power United States power plugs, right? Then you could have kind of like a circuit breaker, a power strip, or something that looks kind of like it belongs next to audio equipment, and then you could just press that power button and have everything come on. That would be kind of something I think they should really work on. But in the meantime, to create, right? But in the meantime, that's just my ideas. What do you get with this? So you get the ability to have one RCA input, one audio output. So of course this is your left and right, and this is going to allow you to hook it up to an amplifier. If you're still using two of the A07 Max amps or an amplifier that doesn't have the 12-volt trigger, you don't necessarily have to buy this if you don't. You know, you don't necessarily have to buy this and say, all right, well, now I have to buy a 12-volt trigger amp. You can still buy this and use it and just turn on the volume individually. You don't necessarily have to depend on that. So what I'm saying is you can still get the A07 Max amps with this. You're just not going to be able to utilize the 12-volt trigger. Well, that's okay because this is a tube preamp. So you're going to get that warm sound with the technology of a standard amplifier, right? And so if you look at what tube amps cost, you know, you go looking at some Macintosh, they're $30,000, right? Super expensive. So what Aiyima has done with this, and other companies do it, they use a couple of GE tubes to just kind of simulate the warmth you get, that sound you get from a tube amplifier. Again, if you were to side by side these, I don't know. I think audio is extremely subjective, and I don't think there's an amplifier on earth that costs $30,000 and I'm going to listen to and say, oh, I have to rationalize the price of that. Like, I just don't see it. For 75 bucks, throw another $100 for the amp, under $200, you're getting a kick-ass, very small form factor audio system that is really going to satisfy most people. You know, and the thing is, when you start looking at different audio setups, whether it's a different amp, whether it's different speakers, the number one, like, I think, component that changes the way the audio sounds is going to be your speakers, right? So, I don't know, just kind of my 2 cents. I'm not overly critical when it comes to sound. All I can tell you is that this thing sounds great. You definitely get an element of warmth and clarity you get that you kind of mimics what you'd get out of a tube amplifier, right? And some folks may not understand what that means. The best way I could describe what a tube sounds like, whether it's authentic tubes or a tube preamp, is it's a difference between almost hearing the audio and saying, hey, I'm listening to a great set of speakers in my house, then listen to that same set of speakers saying, this sounds almost like I'm there. You know what I mean? There's more of a realistic, like, live sound to it. If that's the best way I could describe it. And it's different for everybody, but that's what I get from listening to these amazing amplifiers. So this one here, again, you have your toggle switch, Bluetooth or RCA. I use Google Chromecast audios on all mine because I like the ability to stream music across different rooms with different setups. I have these in Aima products in almost every room, so it allows me to use a Google Chromecast audio, set up a speaker group, and then have all these great sounding stereos playing all at the same time as I move from room to room. You do have on this something I really like, which I wish, I do have a Dayton audio amp right there, and what I don't like about it, one thing I love about it, it looks cool. The downside to it, it doesn't, we're not going to knock it apart too much. I wouldn't buy another one, but one thing I don't like about it is that it doesn't have bass and treble. And I find that what I like to do is when you're listening, you may experience the same issue. If you're listening to a system and you are going to get something like this and you have a nice set of tower speakers, right? You may not have a separate subwoofer, right? I always say get a subwoofer regardless, even though I'm not using one. But perfect example is these Acoustic Research tower speakers I have are extremely expensive, and these things have 10-inch woofers in each one. I don't necessarily need a subwoofer, but what I find with not being able to adjust the bass is there are some songs I want to add more bass and some songs I want to remove it. If I'm going to listen to some hip hop in my house, I don't listen to it the same way I listen to it in the car. In the car, I might want to shake the shit out of my head, right? And vibrate the windows and be bumping. In the home, I just might want to listen to it because I like the song, right? It's just kind of a different, I think, a different way I listen to music in different environments. So if I'm listening to some rap music in my house or something that's bass heavy, I tend to turn down the bass. Well, with this, they're just boomy, and so I can't really do that. On the flip side, I might be listening to a song that maybe a little Pink Floyd that I feel like, hey, this is kind of flat. I want to, pump up the bass a little. Without having a separate subwoofer and reaching over and turn up the gain on the sub, I can't really do that. So I'm kind of stuck to listening to it how it is. With this gives me the bass and treble control. So I can constantly kind of tweak how it sounds. And I definitely recommend, even if you do have a home separate subwoofer, whether you have bookshelf speakers or a set of towers, I still recommend you having the bass and treble controls, no matter what you end up buying. I think most of the Aiyima products have separate bass and treble controls. You can always add on a separate EQ, but it is hard to find small form factor EQs for the home. So again, it's nice that they have this simple bass, treble, volume, you're good to go. Then of course it has tone. And this is kind of an option that I don't necessarily know if I would have put this on this. You have the ability to turn off the EQ. So to me, that's kind of a wasted feature because you can just simply set these to flat. But who might use this? Maybe some folks do want to listen to it completely flat like the artist had recorded it. And sometimes maybe you have your bass and treble set to exactly where you like it. You don't want to change it. You can listen to it two different ways with the flip of the switch. So that's kind of cool. I don't think it's a feature I'm necessarily going to use. And definitely the 12-volt trigger, unless they send me an amplifier that's compatible with that, it's not something I'm going to use. What I'd much rather like, and they can do this with this, is maybe come out, like I was mentioning, a separate power supply that has, or separate component. You can have the power supply separate like they do on these. There's no transformer in here. It's actually a separate one. So you have a nice small package. You put the transformer underneath the dresser, bookshelf, wherever you're adding this to your home. But I would like to see them make something that has the ability to have a separate transformer, something maybe about this size or a little larger, have the ability to add maybe 3 different components, have one switch, and then you be able to turn on all 3 components at once, which is great. But then also maybe have this 12-volt trigger. I don't know, maybe you could have this thing trigger that power adapter. You know what I mean? So you have, it'd be a nice way to utilize this. So you basically have this separate component. You have your other plugs plugged into it, 12-volt trigger into that. Then when you turn on this, it triggers that power supply with a manual switch to turn on your other amplifier. So I think that would be a great addition because most of their products don't have the 12-volt trigger. So it'd be a great way to retrofit another product, get people to buy another product that's going to make it easier to turn on their system with one flip of a switch. But overall, again, these are little things that I'm not considering they're nitpicking. They're just ideas that I don't think that I think would do very well for the company. Whether they listen to me or not is yet to be determined. You know, they have their own design team and stuff, but we'll see. But overall, again, incredible sounding. This is going to give you that awesome kind of tube. And again, if you are an audiophile, right, don't expect that this is going to, if you truly have, and I kind of call bullshit on a lot of this, but if you truly have a refined ear and you have to listen to $30,000, $40,000 amplifiers, you're probably going to listen to this, and even if it, in your heart, it sounds good, your mind's not going to let you say that this sounds as good, right? Because you're just, there's kind of like, your brain can't compute with spending that much money on something and having something that costs $70 sound as good. It's kind of like the luxury watch thing that I always talk about. Folks have to, when they spend the money on a Rolex, they have to rationalize that there's this insane difference, because otherwise, you know, what would be the point of spending all that money? So I don't know. I think it's always best to use your own ear. Always buy what you like and makes you happy and what you feel comfortable with. But again, Aiyima products are awesome. Now, I'm going to put this down for a second. If you are not into having the separate amplifiers and you decide, hey, I'm not going to use the A07 Max separate amps, the advantage to using these separate amps is that you can get twice the power, right? And that is dependent upon the power supply. I am looking directly on their website right here. And they have the T1. This is a great looking setup too, by the way. They have this T1 Pro next to the A70 amplifier, which is awesome. And I really hope that we collaborate on that amp, because that would be a great, not only does it look great, you'll see when you click the link to go to their website, not only does it look great sitting next to this amplifier on a nice bookshelf with a couple small bookshelf speakers, but it's going to give you the ability to have this thing switched, and this will be able to turn that on or off. Let me just give you guys a price on that. Let me see if it's even listed on here, which is really weird. They show it pictured, but I'm not actually seeing it on their website. Let me check the European warehouse. Maybe it hasn't hit the United States yet. No, so they don't even have it. This is what companies do that annoy me. Like you come out with this awesome product and then you're showing it with the this A70 amp, but you don't have the amp. Let me just go to Amazon and we'll see if Amazon actually has it. A70 Aiyima. So here it is on a different, I don't know where it's hiding on here. So it did pop up when I actually searched for it. They didn't have it under their product catalog, but if you search for it, you can find it. It's $189, and that comes with the 48-volt power supply. You can get it with no power supply, which is going to run you $169. So you might as well get it with the 48-volt power supply. And as far as the specifications on it, let's see what it puts out. Looks like it puts out, and again, take this with a grain of salt. It's 2 by 300 watts. That's a maximum output at 4 ohms. So keep in mind, good rule of thumb, I'm not going to give you guys the exact specifications on this because I don't know. Like, this would have to be tested by somebody like Big D Wiz or something like that. But they have different, again, power supplies. So, and this is with all their amps, not the preamp, right? So with their amps, if you're running, for instance, a 4 ohm speaker on a 48-volt power supply, you're going to get 185 watts. If you're running 8 ohm speakers, which is what most home speakers are, you're going to get 105 watts. So, you know, again, if you go with a 36-volt power supply on an 8 ohm speaker, you're going to get 55 watts. So keep that in mind when choosing these. And when you read about, you know, what the specifications are, don't read too quick. Make sure you look at what the power supply is and what your speaker impedance is. Generally, if you are using, and again, you guys might have home speakers that are 4 ohm. That's great. You can find them, absolutely. But if you're getting most speakers are going to be 8 ohm, and they're going to, you know, almost cut the power in half. So just kind of keep that in mind. But you're going to pick this up, $189. You know, I don't know. One might say, why buy 2 A07 Max mono amps when you can get one of these for that price? I don't know. It depends also. Remember, keep in mind cosmetics. how you want this to look. I really like the way the blocky amp looks, the A70. I would really like to see them integrate that with, and I don't think they do it on this. I'd like to see this be able to go mono, like the other amplifier. So I don't know, just ideas. But anyway, the company's awesome. Love the way they sound. If you guys have any questions, I'll do my best to answer. Drop me a comment or drop me an email. I want to thank Aiyima again for their generosity in collaborating with Phatkat Collections. Love this brand, and I know you guys will too. Thanks for watching. Have a good day, and take care.